Celebrating 9 years of podcast excellence, the King of Podcasts Radio Network proudly presents the Wrestling is Real podcast, because wrestling needs us.
Time now for the final 2021 episode of the Wrestling is Real podcast. We start off with releases, or a release today, a requested release. And that will go ahead and lead into the topic for tonight's program. Toni Storm requesting her release from WWE. And that was after after the fact that she went up against and it got a pin over Charlotte Flair in a tag team match. And a couple weeks before, lost her title shot against Charlotte Flair for the SmackDown Women's title. There it is. For whatever reason, she decided to leave. She was still being, she was on the Out of Character show with Ryan Satin, which is more or less, associated with WWE programming. And it was as if everything else was just fine. But obviously they must have recorded that episode before. And the plan was, oh, okay, she's out. No, we haven't heard so much why, but when people started talking about releases, and the question was, why did Toni Storm get released, or why did she ask for her release initially? The first initial report was a release, but there was no reason as to why. We never got any. The initial report didn't say much. And that's where Fightful Select and Sean Ross Sapp actually reported that. And then later on, it was later determined that she's no longer with the company after she requested her release. She was on the road with the company for the post-holiday house show tour, and as the wrestling triple threat matches with SmackDown Women's Champion Charlotte Flair and Sasha Banks. PW Insider reported that Storm flew herself home this morning from Baltimore after a house show in Washington, D.C., and last night's match reportedly went down as scheduled, so it doesn't look like something happened in the ring, which caused her to ask for her release. She started on television in some way, shape, or form with WWE during the 2017 Mae Young Classic, got primarily featured on the NXT UK brand, then got to NXT itself, and got called to the main roster in July this year. There was a point she was going to be in a SmackDown storyline with Dolph Ziggler, which quickly got dropped. And then she was out a storyline for months until she returned several weeks ago to take on Charlotte Flair. And that's it. And there's not much else to say that. Now, I know there's a lot of people that are going to be upset that she left. There's going to be places where she could definitely work and go somewhere else, which is the same thing said for the other stars that have been released or have left. I mean, we have to go back. And I have talked about this years ago. You may remember when I talked about, and I got to look back up on the archives here, of when I talked about the Exodus. And that was something that Cody Rhodes had brought up a while ago, if you might remember. And go figure, it was 2017 that I talked about the mass Exodus. And there was a time where we heard about that. And that was something that Cody Rhodes talked about. And I'm talking about going back to, what was it? October 26, 2017. That's how far back I talked about this. And I'm going to go back to a story from Sportskeeda that actually talked about this at the time. So going back to 2017, we knew there was going to be some kind of a mass exodus because, there was a talk of morale issues within the main roster, the locker room itself as a whole. That was the fuel to the fire initially. When all that happened, you have to remember that, what WWE reaped is what they sowed as well. And going back to this point, in 2017 of October, Sportskeeda reported here about the professional wrestling community being rife with speculation of several WWE Superstars wanted to call it quits with the company, allegedly due to poor booking and unhappy with the promotion's creative process. And the performers that were mentioned in the article were Ryback, Neville, Austin Aries, and Cody Rhodes that have left the organization. And most of them publicly cited the aforementioned reasons. And Dave Meltzer at the time, in 2017, in reference to speculation of a plethora of performers looking to leave, Meltzer noted that unless these current performers are young and don't solely depend on wrestling to make ends meet for their family, they'd likely refrain from quitting the company and trying their luck on the indies. Furthermore, he noted that Drew McIntyre and Cody Rhodes were a couple of rare performers who found tremendous success outside of WWE, but several other things have to fall in place in order to succeed in the indies. And at that time, I would have said there is a small group of people that would have been able to do that, because there was. But that's all changed now. And as we noticed there, Cody Rhodes, along with his association with the Young Bucks, Kenny Omega, and then getting that association with Tony Khan, for AEW to become a reality 2 years after that. Because it's what it took for this organization now, AEW, All Elite Wrestling, to be where it's at now at the end of 2021 and to have been able to pull off what they've done with a 2-year ramp up of getting this organization put into light to get the All In pay-per-view happening. Oh, All Out, excuse me. I always get that confused. And then the actual promotion getting brought into the limelight right off the bat, 2 years after that, and being on TNT and starting the Dynamite program. There's so much that happened in such a short amount of time. And don't think that WWE doesn't really consider the fact that, they've always played nonchalant. And they have been neglectful. They've been stubborn. They're corporate. This is what they do when you're a large, publicly traded company like they are. And when you have a true, and I say in the most amorous of words, a true kind of a sociopath, but very much a control freak in Vince McMahon. But he has earned the right to be that. And I'm not disputing the fact, because I've already proven over the last couple of episodes, I've explained why I think some of the decisions they've made are valid and they make sense now. When I talked about 2 weeks ago, episode 661, kind of hard to say it all together, why WWE wants and should seek out scholar athletes to the next in line program, well, that's the direction you want to go, and it makes all the sense in the world for them. And then, after that, you look at, in order to open the door for that, they wanted to get out the environment as to where professional wrestlers thought they had a chance to hone their craft and to learn to adapt to WWE style. And be able to get that promo cutting ability that is required of said wrestlers coming into the company. And getting the opportunity through NXT, first via Dusty Rhodes, then Triple H, with Shawn Michaels shortly after. And try to say, okay, well, what can we do about this? Well, I always was afraid that this would happen. That there was going to be, really, what Cody Rhodes said in 2017, the mass exodus, it might not have been all at the behest of the wrestlers, but the mass exodus was executed and orchestrated by WWE themselves. With the last 2 years of putting out, 80 superstars? Releasing their other contracts, whether they were released of their own volition, or the company chose to release them for budget cuts, whatever it was, somehow, some way, they were being future endeavored. and they're off to their other pastures. And one of the major sanctuaries for professional wrestling now is AEW. And why not? I mean, the thing is now, the territory system that we remember back in the day is back to where we are. Let's be honest here. Because in the 80s, during that first boon of heyday mainstream popularity and cable television of the likes of the World Wrestling Federation, their competition at the time was AWA on ESPN, NWA on TBS, later World Championship Wrestling, and also World Class Championship Wrestling on ESPN, or also syndicated worldwide, basically, with what they were able to do. And so they had all that set up for them. You know, there were professional wrestling outlets to go to and to pillage themselves. So the routine here is very similar. When World Wrestling Federation needed to bring in some new talent into the rock and wrestling era, what do? They acquired most of their talent, acquiring major names and pillaging the AWA roster. Right? That's where Gene Okerlund, Bobby Heenan, Hulk Hogan came from, Jesse the Body Ventura, among others. And they were able to go and sign these guys away. Get them on national television, because AWA at that point was not national. And by the time AWA was on ESPN, it was already, on its way down. And Vern Gagne's heydays of the AWA were starting to go behind them. Still had some good talent in that time, but they were losing a lot of that talent to the World Wrestling Federation. You go into the 90s, hey, when WCW is having the same kind of morale issues and the creative control problems under Eric Bischoff, or then after Vince Russo, WWF, then WWE took advantage of it and pillaged that roster of those that made a mass exodus and got their way out of there. Because at that time, people wanted to be in WWE because it was the place to be. And not everybody could be there, but they took in a lot of stars. But at that time also, the same kind of stars from WCW, there are only a handful that really did succeed well past, what their position was in WCW. Chris Benoit, Rey Mysterio Jr., Eddie Guerrero, Booker T. There were some that definitely made their spot and left a mark, indelible, of their career in the WWE. All right? Now the other way is around. When you're looking here and you're saying, wow, man, we've heard mass exodus rumors a long time. We even heard that back in June of 2019. That also came up. It was rumbling around. Now let's go ahead and get into the other part of what was going on. 2019, the Squared Circle channel on Reddit was definitely trying to push that out there. But everybody talked about it. At the same time, you had Jimmy Jacobs, who was working as producer back there, was fired. You had the issues why Bo Dallas and Bray Wyatt were missing for TV for a long time. Nia Jax apparently had been granted a leave of absence for mysterious reasons. And that created the rumor of a mass exodus. Taking more from Dave Meltzer when he talked about this, he points out that most performers who are unhappy would not be able to make anything like the same kind of living on the indies. No one can be Cody Rhodes, building on a famous name, and stepping right into a prominent role with the Bullet Club and Ring of Honor. And it's even less likely that you'd be able to manage Drew McIntyre, proving your worth in the indies after an unsuccessful stunt, and then coming to greater glory in NXT. We come full circle now. That's definitely happened. There was even a time where Daniel Bryan's contract had come up in September 2018, but then it looked like he had re-signed and stayed around for a few more years. And thus did not re-sign in 2021, and now we saw where he was. But while Dave Meltzer said that the whole rumor was overblown, he didn't deny or dispute the fact that on Twitter even said several are thinking about it as far as asking Cody. It would make sense to do that, but you'd have to ask him. So at that time, Cody, currying favor with Cody Rhodes to possibly get themselves into Ring of Honor and maybe find their way into the Ring of Honor New Japan Wrestling partnership, the alliance they had, the talent exchange. That could have been a possibility. But this right here changes everything. AEW. And they have answered the call here. But now we have such a mass exodus of talent in the last 2 years, and where they've gone and what they've done since they moved on. You know, it'd be nice to go and talk about AEW tonight, which had a very good show to close out the TNT era. Moving to the Superstation next Wednesday. Love it. But, you know, it's these things here that, you know, put a damper on the end of the new year. You know, Toni Storm just reminds us of everyone else that got let go this year. And I want to go through the list real quick and talk about who has gone and how that really stands out in terms of where things go with the company now that they've lost all this talent and what they've done, this talent themselves, and where they've moved on to. So let's go ahead and go through the list. Because at the same time, I want to know if, you know, while these releases happened, you know, the whole idea was, and the whole thought process of everybody talking about wasn't even that long ago. I would hear a lot of people talk about, oh, this person should go to WWE, right? I always talked about, you know, certain podcasters whose names I will not mention. Always talking about they should go over. Well, that's changed. The pandemic changed that mindset altogether. Because now you don't hear anybody talking about that people want to be, that professional wrestlers should be going to the big top. Because it's not for them. And if they want to try, go right ahead. But they don't take kindly to professional wrestlers anymore. They're looked down upon. So if you want to go in there with a chip on your shoulder and you want just to be able to prove that you need to be in their business, because you can overcome the fact of being overlooked as a professional wrestler. It's not anything about being from WCW or ECW or NWA, MLW, Impact, or AEW. It doesn't matter. Professional wrestler. That's on your resume. And as you have that, it doesn't look as good as, you know, professional, you know, Olympic wrestler or college wrestler, collegiate athlete, you know, Division I school with the particular specifications, physicality, and enthusiasm, charisma that you would need to be crafted, molded, and recreated, and redesigned, and repackaged in the mindset that a Vince McMahon will approve. Not easy. Look at the names that have come on. This is just this year. The names that have been let go. Let's go ahead and start backwards to the start of the year and go forwards. It's a lot of names, but we'll try the best we can to just go through all of it. It's going back to April 15th. I've seen nothing of Wesley Blake. I've seen nothing of Bo Dallas. Kalisto did appear as Fuego del Sol, was it Fuego del Sol, right? In AEW for like one appearance, and I think he's working in Mexico, as far as I know. Tucker Knight, I've not heard a thing from him. Chelsea Green and Matt Cardona have made themselves over to GCW and Impact Wrestling and NWA. And Matt Cardona has done a pretty good job of trying to recreate himself and create a new persona, legitimize himself and prove he's not the whole Zack Ryder gimmick that was given to him. He's not an edgehead. He wants to remove himself. He wants to distance himself from that character. And he wants to prove himself to be a better wrestler than everybody, puts him out to be. And he has the support of Chelsea Green to make that happen. Mickie James, most recently was an Impact Knockout champion. She did the work with the Empower pay-per-view, producing that. And she's definitely just working on what she wants to do, supportive of her husband, Nick Aldis, who dropped the belt earlier this year to Trevor Murdoch, NWA 73. Billie Kay, Peyton Royce, now the inspiration of Impact Wrestling. And for them, it's a smaller scale for them, but it is television. And I like the representation of the icon of the inspiration now. I like it better than it was the Iconics. And I think they're getting to be taken more seriously. I mean, they still have a little bit of the quirkiness, the goofiness, but it's not over the top as it was. And, you can just kind of tell that the style they want to portray themselves, even like the makeup when you see Billie Kay, the way she's portrayed and looks together, they just look better because I think they have more control of how they want to look and how they want to present themselves, empowering. And that's good. I think they've done fine. I think they've been a good addition to the Knockouts Tag Team division. Samoa Joe we have not seen, but then we remember hearing about him being returned. And he did return, and then injury, and we have not seen him since. Steve Cutler's now Steve Macklin, and he is over in Impact Wrestling, and they are giving him a decent push. So you could see him, and what is it? Isn't he trying to go after Trey Miguel? I forget, what is it? I gotta look about who's, because he does have a match at Hard to Kill. And unfortunately, last 2 weeks for Impact Wrestling are all best ofs, so they really haven't done anything much to promote that. They'll have to do that this week, next week coming up. But Steve Macklin is, yes, I remember that. He's going for the X Division title against Trey Miguel. So he's getting a push. And they portrayed him pretty well. Anything for Forgotten Sons or whatever else he was, long gone. Not even considered. You're looking at Lars Sullivan. He's had issues with anxiety issues. And, quietly, never heard anything bad from him. And also was basically canceled because of comments that came up that were misogynistic and racist that came up from an internet forum that surfaced. Plus, he has appearances in adult films before his wrestling career got underway. So it's done for him. Andrade El Idolo, well, he's now an AEW star. He doesn't get a whole lot of appearances on the main show on Dynamite or Rampage, but he has appeared. And he's wrestled quite a bit when it comes to, even like going on Dark and Dark Elevation. Dark Elevation. Seen him on there as well. Now, the other thing, too, is that he's still working New Japan Pro Wrestling, CMLL. He's worked AAA. So he's getting a lot of work. And I always knew he was going to do just fine. Jessamine Duke, Santana Garrett. Santana Garrett I've seen over... Didn't she have an appearance on AEW? I think they had her... Yeah, she's been on AEW Dark. I've seen her on there. And she's always had other work. So for Santana Garrett, she's just never had a place to call home, consistently. I think, WOW, but I don't remember if she was there for that long. Ruby Soho has done very well for herself in AEW. I think AEW has done a great job of promoting her. Single star, she's promoted very strong. She's worked a lot of shows. And, it's nice to hear the crowd really get behind her. Because she doesn't look cookie cutter anymore. She's much more comfortable with what she's doing here. Obviously enjoyed working with Liv Morgan. But, right now she's working great here. She's, they pushed her very well in this TBS title tournament. And they're going to put her on on the first show on TBS on Dynamite. And she's going to go after Jade Cargill to crown the new inaugural TBS champion. And they've made that TBS title mean something. Really good stuff. Now, as for those that might have said, well, why did Thunder Rosa lose? Look, I don't have a problem with her where Thunder Rosa, it looks like they want to continuously have a lot of obstacles keep thrown in her way. And, you know, it would have been fine to see her do well. And look, she got to the finals here. And they want to keep Jade Cargill undefeated. I get it. They're going to keep her dominant. And they're going to build that TBS title off her. And I think that Jade Cargill is going to win that belt. I don't think that Ruby Soho is going to get it. I mean, I don't know yet. I mean, I can still see where, you know, Mark Sterling could go ahead and, you know, make that happen. Smart Mark, right? Like this show. But we don't know yet. And we don't know if Mercedes Martinez is going to be involved or at ringside during that match either. Don't know. So, long removed from Riot Squad. Better for her. And now, you know, she's positioned very well. So I can appreciate all that. That was June 2nd that Ruby let go. Lana, who we have not seen since, but is, you know, subliminally mentioned by Miro on AEW, which, by the way, we must mention that Rusev has been, you know, wonderful when it comes to his push and what he's gotten to do as TNT champion. And, you know, the fact they're going to bring him back pretty soon. They put a promo out there, a package feature on him against a white background on Rampage, right? So he's going to come back. He's going to go after TNT Gold, or he's going to go after the world title. So he's definitely looking to go ahead and take on whoever wins from Bryan Danielson and Adam Page. So I don't know if we get a trifecta off of Danielson and Page, but I think that the winner of that AEW World Championship match Wednesday night on Dynamite, they're going to have Miro as the next opponent. And Miro's been booked so well. Just got to say that. Buddy Murphy now going to be Buddy Matthews. And I know I've heard his name spread around in terms of working, but I have not seen him anywhere on television of my own yet. But he's going to jump up somewhere. No doubt. Malachi Black. Fantastic. You don't need him to be necessarily has to be champion, but he is a formidable figure. He has had a hell of a feud with Cody Rhodes. Regardless of how everybody wants to go and give, you know, shit to Cody Rhodes for winning that feud. But Malachi Black had the bulk of the feud won and was strong as a heel throughout. And right now, a very interesting featured feud with the Varsity Blondes. And how he has basically directly affected every member of the Varsity Blondes. First, spring out Julia Hart's eyes, which we have not seen her since. And then going to town on Griff Garrison. And then Brian Pillman Jr. also, you know, getting mind games off of Malachi Black. And it's great. The character, the look, all of it is fantastic. The House of Black. Malachi Black being booked better than he ever was in NXT or WWE. Period. Malachi Black is fantastic in AEW, as he should be. As for Braun Strowman, now known as Titan, a.k.a. Adam Scherr, you saw him on the final Ring of Honor Final Battle show. That's Control Your Narrative, and I know that they're going to feature him on other shows, but, you know, to see him on a show I'm going to get to see him on, whether it's Impact or MLW, NWA, or whatever, don't know yet. But Control Your Narrative as a faction does not have a home yet. We're waiting. Everrise, now they're 2.0, has been fantastic together with Daniel Garcia. And the whole thing with the Inner Circle and their feud right now with Chris Jericho, that's all great stuff. And they're featured very well. Listen, they were made jokey in NXT, and now they're being taken seriously. And these guys are good. And all this together, it's a very good trio that we have right now. And, you know, if they ever decide to go and do a trios title, they obviously have trios matches pretty often. They could definitely have this team and others competing for a trios title down the line, if they choose to do so. Arya Davari, you know, I know you see him around. I want to say I saw him in AEW Dark, but I can't remember if it was sure. Tony Nese is AEW right now and just got done with a dark match with Anthony Green. And, they're quietly working with Tony Nese. They've made some references. He had a featured match on, I think it was Rampage to start off. And they have not said much. They just kind of are working him up. But even on dark, they make him a big deal. And I like how, even when there's just, and certainly when it comes to Rampage, when it comes to Dynamite, there's just certain stars. And even just the way they're portrayed on those shows. Like, I don't feel like there's a big drop in the talent level or just the, obviously the style of the matches being done on the squash matches on Dark and Dark Elevation, still fun. And they still have some pretty good matches on there anyway that they'll feature throughout. So it's not just squash, right? But you can see showcasing. And Tony Nese right now is getting showcased. Arturo Ruas, have not seen anything from him, but I wouldn't be surprised if he went back into the MMA circuit. Dirty Dango made his, or Fandango, or Dirty Dango, was featured on the NWA, what was it? Hard Times 2. He was featured on Hard Times 2. Along with JTG. Let's see where that goes with that. But he's back on TV somewhere. Tyler Breeze, when I've seen anything of him. Bollywood Boys are still working right now, but we have not seen them here. But the Singh brothers have been featured in various independent circles right now. Marina Shafir, we have not seen of. Anthony Green, as I made mention of, or August Gray, he is over in AEW. And, they're doing something with him. He's getting featured. And they're just getting a chance to work. And they're probably working the independent shows, but at least they get a little bit of a shot over on AEW. Alexander Wolf or Killian Dane, we have not seen anything of. No word of Bray Wyatt, but we still think that Bray Wyatt is bound for some TV company. Originally, Impact Wrestling was very high on getting him in, but it looks like AEW will probably bring him in. I don't know where how he'll work and how he'll be brought in, but that's one part. Ric Flair requested his release. And as far as I know, the only appearance I remember seeing of him was he accompanied Andrade Idolo for a title match at AAA's Triple Mania, and that's about it. And then we remember August 6th, we had NXT go through everything that they went through. So at the moment, Bobby Fish is now accompanied with Red Dragon and Kyle O'Reilly back in AEW. They're back to your old trunks. They got the old music back. All the moveset. And honestly, Red Dragon, I know everybody has an affiliation for Undisputed Era. And even everybody's saying, see, they were even chanting Undisputed on the yeah, I know. Listen, they're going to remember where they came from. But to me, I'll be honest with you. Yeah, I like what they did in NXT. Don't get me wrong. But I'm not going over the moon that the Undisputed Era was such a great thing. Listen, it was a faction of really good Ring of Honor stars that WWE was never going to push higher. And if they did, they weren't going to use them right. So the fact that they left NXT and everybody's upset about it, a lot of the casual fans or all the loyal WWE fans, yeah, you're upset about it, but you know what? This is where they had to go. They had to go somewhere else to go ahead and elevate themselves. So the time they spent at NXT, that just led them to AEW, all of them. In some way, shape, or form. Their contracts were done, they left. Well, Bobby Fish was released, but either which way. Obviously, with Adam Cole, with the Young Bucks, and Kenny Omega and others over there, and Cody, those guys were never going to get left behind. Once they were left as free agents, they had places to go. They had friends in AEW in that locker room. Obviously, Adam Cole with his girlfriend, Britt Baker, out there. And just knowing that, whoever was part of that Ring of Honor, that time where things were so hot with that company, 2016 to 2018. And for whatever reason, Ring of Honor never pulled the trigger. We've talked about that a couple weeks ago when we did the Final Battle show, about the end of Ring of Honor as we know it. That's what it was. Now, as we see it, a lot of the names from NXT during that August 6th set of releases, we didn't see much of. But Bobby Fish has found his way over to AEW. Mercedes Martinez just made her debut after working a program with Mickie James over in Impact Wrestling. And now she's over in AEW to do a feature program with Thunder Rosa. I don't know how long she'll be there for, but I'm imagining she can go wherever she wants. And obviously, people want to work with her. Wrestling companies want to work with her. And not just probably just to do wrestling, but I'm sure there's a lot of, experience she can provide some of the younger lady wrestlers, female wrestlers there that could use a lot of experience from someone the caliber of Mercedes Martinez. But at the same time, she's going to get to work because the whole thought process in NXT and WWE was Mercedes Martinez, they wanted her to train, but she still wanted to work. And good for her. Maybe she's going to get the best of both worlds right now with AEW. And remember, with all these stars, they're not stuck to these exclusive contracts where they're not going to work anywhere else. They're not going to be subjected to some 300 show tour every year, which obviously WWE is going back to that again. They're not missing the chance of going to every place they can go and go back out on the road. They're going to do it. That's what they want to do. Okay. So they decided to do that. Next, Bronson Reed, who is now Jonah in Impact Wrestling, working a program because he's not working long-term with Impact Wrestling. He has already mentioned it's a short-term program. So if he's working a program right now with Josh Alexander, after a great setup, after Josh Alexander was hoping to go after Moose or W. Morrissey and trying to get back what he lost at Bound for Glory, and the whole idea that Josh Alexander needs to tamp it down because he's losing control of himself and he's losing control of the situation. And, Scott D'Amore has to go and, jump down his throat. Well, that's what's going to happen. But Jonah being here, I like to see where more goes of what he's going to do. Then, November 4th, the other big list of releases. And so far, we haven't seen a lot of these people make their way in anywhere yet. Karrion Kross and Scarlett Bordeaux, they did get featured on an interview. I forget if it was it Renee Paquette? Yes, I think it was. But so far, most of the names that were released on November 4th, we have not heard anything from. We have not seen them pop up anywhere. But that's probably because the 90-day non-compete is probably still in effect. And then November 18th, we had more names who also probably we have to wait and see what happens with the 90-day non-compete after them, with Ashanti Adonis, Top Dollar, Drake Maverick, John Morrison, Tegan Knox, Jackson Riker, Isaiah Swerve Scott, and Shane Thorne. But as far as I'm concerned, following that summer earnings call, the second quarter earnings call, when Vince McMahon talked about how, if AEW is looking for more, releases, if they're looking for more talent, we can provide them some. Well, that shot across the bow. Obviously, AEW has been very selective. And I like all the people they've brought on board. I mean, they've brought in some really top caliber free agents. CM Punk's a game changer. Bryan Danielson is a game changer. And there's a lot of names where, listen, I know they put Adam Cole at such a high level. I like that. I think he's definitely, I think he's kind of where Adam Page was, where, Adam Cole was Ring of Honor champion, and he's been tag team champions. He's had gold, and, to move him over here, you can definitely get down the line and put him in for a title shot. He could go up and move up the rankings for the world title, but there's a couple names ahead of him. And that's the only thing right now that has to be done with is that, when it comes to Adam Cole, Miro and MJF, I think you're ahead of the pack on him. So, but he doesn't have to be in the title picture right now. There's so much material that can go off with the Young Bucks and what they really decide to do. Right now, they're working with Best Friends in the current situation, but the Super Clique, along with Red Dragon, all that friction could lead to a head, and we could see Young Bucks and Red Dragon at a head and Adam Cole in the middle, and who knows? And how about when Kenny Omega comes back? How does that fit into the mix? Because I think all those stars right there, okay, Young Bucks, Red Dragon, Kenny Omega, Adam Cole, the whole clique, the Bullet Club Elite right there, they're going to have to all find themselves at a head. They're going to have to get themselves all put together. All those guys that met each other through Bullet Club associations and Ring of Honor, that's all got to get situated. However they decide to tell that story, that's what's going to happen there. And there's a lot to be said right there. So we can wait on that. Then, we had Jeff Hardy got released. There's a lot of places he can go. He has history with Impact Wrestling, of course. He could definitely rejoin Matt. Everybody will be happy about seeing the Hardy Boys together. I hope that the Broken and the Brother Nero and Broken Matt characters come back to life. But right now, Matt Hardy is kind of occupied with the Hardy family office. Maybe what will happen is, Matt Hardy will continue his role, and Jeff Hardy will be brought into the family office together. And then, Jeff Hardy, listen, and the fact that guy was working so well anyway. And I think for him, Jeff Hardy, I would really feel like, after all it was said and done, when they talked about, was he relapsing? And apparently it was not the case. Well, the thought is that I think the schedule is grueling. And I think what's going to happen as well, we're only, 5.5 months into the touring schedule again. And the WWEs right now definitely getting back to that swing of full-scale touring all over again. So the idea of 300 house shows again a year, that's going to happen again. And how many of those wrestlers, how many of those superstars are willing to go in that fashion right there? Especially the older ilk of stars they have right now with Bobby Lashley, Drew McIntyre, AJ Styles, Randy Orton, who obviously doesn't work with that full schedule, Dolph Ziggler, Robert Roode. Think about all the stars they have now. Sheamus and, New Day Usos. Those guys, to get back into the swing of things and go 300 shows again. Talk about the women when it comes to Charlotte Flair, Sasha Banks, Becky Lynch, Bianca Belair. That's a lot of work, man. And again, a light roster. What are they going to do to go and take care of those stars? Because when they get back to that schedule again, at the moment, they don't have much room for injury. They don't have much room for that. They're already having issues right now with the COVID situation because, even though COVID has not been deemed, according to the CDC and according to the World Health Organization, the Omicron variant isn't as deadly as once before, but still, it is something that has to be considered. It has to, the proper health and safety protocols are in place. Obviously, the protocols have been changed by the CDC, so the amount of quarantine time is less, but still, you have certain stars that need to be protected for the day one pay-per-view, which we're going to talk about in a few minutes. And then you got that plus, but that's going to be just health and safety protocols. There are certain areas, like in Canada or in the international tour, they just can't go right now. But they're going to have to figure out some way to make sure that all these stars stay healthy throughout that grueling schedule, especially when you've taken so many stars away that could have worked matches that would fill some of those slots in the house shows. But we understand you want to work with a lean and mean roster, and you need to replenish it. And you need to find stars that fit Vince's name, image, and likeness. That satisfies Vince's ego, Vince's, creation. Somewhere, some way, somehow. They have to figure that out. So if they decide they're going to do that, they're going to be their plan. Okay, makes sense. Among the stars that Impact Wrestling or others have picked up, you haven't. Impact Wrestling has been pretty selective, and there are certain stars that were not around for a long time that you decided to bring back in. When it comes to W. Morrissey, but so far there are some stars they brought in. W. Morrissey, I think the whole thing with him and Moose, that's not been bad. They have not used him too bad. I think his promo ability still is not great, but he's been serviceable. Definitely, he's been a good big guy to have in there. And not to have a tag team partner, he's still booked very strong overall. I think Matt Cardona's been booked very well. I'm very curious what to do with the NWA title. And I know there's been a bit of flack because Matt Cardona all of a sudden is possibly going to challenge Trevor Murdoch for the NWA World Heavyweight title. And I don't know, that kind of a quick turnaround when he hasn't earned it. But now it's the whole thing he's attached to Mike Knox and everything that's going on with that. So that long leniency of Nick Aldis holding on to that belt for so much time to drop it. Like, we're not going to hopefully see the NWA World Heavyweight Championship being tossed around hot potato style. I don't see Billy Corgan doing that. But they have to build they have to go and find some contenders, and they have to see who's going to gel well with Trevor Murdoch and find who's the right heel to this babyface. Something. Steve Macklin, the Brian Myers character is interesting to me. I think having him attached to VSK and Ziggy Dice and all, there's something there with Brian Myers. It's interesting. I'm not been bored by it yet. So I am kind of digging the gimmick right now with him. I like the inspiration coming in so far. Jonah's appearance has been good so far. Impact Wrestling just doesn't have much of a boost right now. But, their shows have been all right. I'm almost tempted to go see their show in Fort Lauderdale when they come down here. Not necessarily Fort Lauderdale. They're calling it Fort Lauderdale, but it's Pembroke Pines, the Charles Dodge Center, which I had never heard of, but looks like a good-sized venue for the place. It'll probably be a nice place to go and see the show. Otherwise, we haven't seen a whole lot of names that have made their way in to the company as of late when it comes to who could be looked at by other companies. We haven't seen a whole lot happening so far when it comes to MLW or NWA and seeing what stars can come in. And obviously with no Ring of Honor, we will never know now what they would have done. We have no clue. Oh, well. Has all these stars, we haven't seen all these stars make their way in and find their new homes yet because the non-competes are still in place. And, an AEW cannot just take up all this talent all the time. And they can rotate talent that they can have on. We haven't seen them make any releases yet either. So we don't know. And of course, there's WWE loyalists that want to say, oh, well, then some of these AEW stars have been around for, since the start of the company. They're all going to get rotated out, and they're going to probably, get dropped from their contracts. Remember, these are all some of these stars, they get to work in other companies. And they still get to go and get featured on AEW programming. And maybe it's just on YouTube, but that's still just as good. You're still going to get people watching those shows. I know I'm watching them, and I enjoy watching those shows. Look forward to the YouTube shows. Now, after that, who knows? We just got to wait. But I don't think it's going to hurt WWE in the long run. I understand why they decided to make the move they did. There's no, I've already done enough to go ahead and make sense of why they did what they did. So their decision has been made. They're going the route with athletes, and it makes sense for them because they are wasting their time with the professional wrestlers if they're not going to do right by them and let them kind of just continue to hone the craft they have and enhance it. They don't want to do that anymore. They don't want to be a polishing school. They're going to take everybody they want in the Performance Center and mold them every inch, nook, and cranny. They're going to be programmed and totally studied in the science of WWE style. They're going to learn it. They're going to know what it's going to be. And for the likes of Toni Storm or, who knows who else will be still around of all this. And the ones that are still, somewhere in the realms of WWE right now and getting a chance in this short little window of the WrestleMania offseason before Royal Rumble comes into play, where Toni Storm and Shotzi Blackheart or, Doudrop or Liv Morgan have all had their chances to get some kind of look. Same thing with Austin Theory. Same thing with, Ridge Holland or, whoever. You're seeing some people getting some chances. How far will it go for them? We don't know. Well, anyway, the more important thing is looking at what they have coming up for day one, which, as you know very well, I've talked about on the show, we know that the show is going to be pretty well. They have a lot of things to go and work off of. Let's go and look at the day one card coming up. State Farm Arena, Atlanta, Georgia. This Saturday, 7 o'clock bell time. They'll start at 7 o'clock as opposed to 8 o'clock. Now, I don't know if that means that just 7 o'clock is the coverage, but that's what I read on Fightful, so I don't know if that's correct or not, but we'll find that out. Oh, excuse me, it's 8 p.m. on Peacock. I don't know why I saw 7, but it's 8 p.m. on Peacock. It'll be nice to have that on New Year's Day, by the way. You know what I mean? It's not going to be, it's nice to have something going on for this weekend to have that. And not to have the TLC pay-per-view on, 2 weeks ago. I think this is a very good move. And I think people are going to look forward to the New Year's Day pay-per-view, just even, no matter what it's going to be. But to have a WWE pay-per-view on New Year's Day, that's pretty cool. They can make this a pretty significant pay-per-view, and I think this could outshine Survivor Series. Who knows? The day one pay-per-view, the way they're saying they're trying to position it, could very well be a show that will be one of the big 4 pay-per-views, or just be one of those pillars of the pay-per-views they have coming up that leads right into WrestleMania season. So that can be rolled out. So anyway, card they have so far, Fatal 4-Way match for the WWE Championship, Big E versus Seth Rollins versus Bobby Lashley versus Kevin Owens. And I have to go and look and see if there's any change in the card right now, because I haven't looked at the latest part when it comes to if anyone is not able to perform at day one. I haven't looked at what that was yet. But let me look at the card here. Okay. So far, you still have the Fatal 4-Way in place. Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar for the Universal title. In the WWE Championship match, I'm going to say Bobby Lashley. I will stick with my pick. Bobby Lashley will become WWE Champion once again, correcting the booking they decided to go with before. And Seth Rollins and Kevin Owens can still be, going after the belt, because I think Bobby Lashley is turning face. If he hasn't already, I think he's turning face. Period. I'm going to predict that Brock Lesnar will beat Roman Reigns, and that'll be to the help of Paul Heyman, who will assist Brock Lesnar at ringside. So I think Roman Reigns is going to turn face as well. So we'll get a double face turn at that show. Brock Lesnar will become heel once again, accompanied by Paul Heyman, and that leads into WrestleMania. And there's a lot of story to be told behind that. Usos against the New Day. I mean, toss it up. I'll take the New Day to probably win again. Edge versus The Miz. And I'm going to take The Miz this time on this. And I think they're going to extend this feud. It's not a one-off. I'm going to take The Miz on this first match. I think that's where we're going to go. Especially when you already had the deal with Edge doing a, brood bath on Miz and Maurice and the whole wedding vows segment, right? And that's where, it's kind of just detecting it. It's kind of just predicting that route. Becky Lynch versus Liv Morgan for the Raw Women's title. Becky Lynch. There's not even a question there. Book it. Pay it out. Drew McIntyre will make quick work of Madcap Moss, but of course, Baron Corbin will come in, get the heat back, and Baron Corbin and Drew McIntyre are set up for something. I don't know what they're going to do, but, we'll see something with them down the line, probably in the Royal Rumble match itself. And the Street Profits defeated, was it Alpha Academy? I don't forget who they took on. But yeah, I think it was Alpha Academy, to be the contenders in the RK Bro tournament, win the finals of the RK Bro tournament. RK Bro-nament, right? Oh my God, that name. So RK Bro versus Street Profits. Just give it to RK Bro again. Done. I don't see where, Randy Orton and Matt Riddle are ready to go and break up right now. I don't think it's time for that. I don't think it'll be until after WrestleMania, personally. And that's it. And by the way, coming up for Impact Wrestling's Hard to Kill, that's coming up the week following, January 8th. Already have a full slate of matches ready to go. Mickie James versus Deonna Purrazzo for the Knockouts title. An Ultimate X match for the Knockouts, with the winner getting a chance at the Knockouts Championship. Lady Frost versus Tasha Steelz. Rachel Ellering, Jordan Grace, Rosemary, and Chelsea Green. That looks really good. Impact World Title, Moose versus Matt Cardona versus W. Morrissey. I didn't realize Cardona was included in the match, but yeah, they did set up the storyline where Matt Cardona accidentally hit Chelsea Green, and that's because of the result of Moose. Josh Alexander versus Noah, and then a hardcore war, Good Brothers versus Violent by Design, or Good Brothers and Violent by Design teaming up against Willie Mack, Rich Swann, Eddie Edwards, Rhino, and Heath. Inspiration will defend the Knockout Tag Team titles against the Influence. Ring of Honor World Championship. Oh, man. Ring of Honor World title will be defended. Jonathan Gresham will defend against Chris Sabin in a second defense, because I think he's defending a GCW, and I think that's before this show. And Trey Miguel will defend the X Division title against Steve Macklin. Damn, good show for Hard to Kill. Wow. That'll be at the Factory in Dallas, Texas. Good stuff. And there you go. All right, well, anyway, I'm going to leave it there. And as I wrap up the show and finish up the hour of the show, I want to thank all of you for another great year of the program. Now at the start of the 10th year of this program, of which the 10th anniversary celebration I will do next December. I can't believe it's been that long. It's been a whirlwind year. I'm so glad we're on the other side of the pandemic when it comes to wrestling. What an exciting time. When I talked about it was going to be an exciting time to be a professional wrestling fan, it is right now. So amazing. Very unfortunate Ring of Honor is not part of the process now. But next year, one of the members of the New Wrestling Alliance needs to take the place. So Impact, MLW, NWA need to step up. And for my own sake, I hope that MLW finds a better TV deal somewhere. I know that Court Bauer's working on it. We'll see. Let's see, right? I'm waiting for it. And there's just so much more to come. So I'm looking forward to it. Look for the show. And please tell people more about the show. And honestly, if you want to go and give feedback to me, look for my social media out there. I post quite a bit on TikTok. I'll tweet over on Twitter. I do post up on the Facebook page, facebook.com/wrestlingIsReal. I got an Instagram page at King of Podcasts. Look for me there. If you go and check it out, reach out to me there. Hell, I'm on Snapchat if you want to reach out to me there too. Okay. Got all that. So please do. Feel free to contact me if you want to go and do feedback. Also a great way to do feedback as well. Go ahead and check out the YouTube page, youtube.com/JBRASCO951. You can find all the stuff there. So, I will do a post show for day one coming up this weekend, but that'll be once we get into the new year. So, I will talk to you for the post show of day one here on the Wrestling Is Real podcast. Happy New Year, because wrestling needs us.
Thank you for listening to the Wrestling Is Real podcast. You can find all previous episodes at WrestlingIsReal.com. or subscribe to the show on all major podcast outlets, including Apple, Amazon, Google, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Follow the King of Podcasts on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at King of Podcasts, and search King of Podcasts on YouTube, or type youtube.com/JBRASCO951. This has been a presentation of the King of Podcasts Radio Network.